This is DFW International Airport, built in 1974, located in Irving, Texas, United States. Ranked as the fourth largest airport in the United States by size and serving approximately 70 million passengers yearly, heading out to 260 destinations worldwide. However, just 2 miles south of this humongous international airport, you might notice something that looks like an airport runway. Was that actually a runway? And more importantly, was it an actual airport? The answer is yes. So, what's the story behind this mysterious airport that's now been engulfed by roads and industrial buildings? And more importantly, how did this airport die, while the other two commercial airports in the DFW Metroplex, the DFW International Airport and the Dallas Love Field Airport, survived and thrived? Today, we'll be taking a look at this forgotten airport only 2 miles south of DFW. In order to know the whole story, let's shift the time back to 1920. In the early 1920s, as the popularity of commercial aviation grew, the city of Fort Worth proposed to build a regional airport to serve the entire Dallas-Fort Worth metropolitan area. Because of the need to serve two cities at the same time, the airport was planned to be built equidistant from the centers of the two cities to ensure easy access for both. At the beginning, the city of Dallas had no interest in participating in this construction plan. However, as the Great Depression surged all across the United States from 1929 to 1933, the city of Dallas eventually agreed to participate, to not only save money for the city government, but also help construct a new facility to compensate the growing popularity of commercial air travel. After the end of the Great Depression in 1933, the airport construction eventually began in 1935. For the terminal construction of this airport, Dallas and Fort Worth decided to use the funds from the Work Progress Administration. The Work Progress Administration, or the WPA, is an agency founded in 1935 by President Roosevelt's New Deal to help America recover from the Great Depression. This agency was in charge of funding and building public work projects, as well as providing paying jobs to the unemployed during the Great Depression. Now, everything seemed to go well for this future airport until Dallas suddenly quitted the construction after finding that the airport terminal was planned to be built on the site closer to Fort Worth. Dallas was obviously mad and left the half-finished airport to the city of Fort Worth alone. Shortly after Dallas quitted the airport construction, World War II came for America in 1941. During the war, this partly finished airport was named the Midway Field and the Arlington Municipal Airport. In 1943, when all three runways of the airport were finally paved, the airport was then occupied and used by the U.S. Navy and the U.S. Army Transport Command as a facility for training and test flights. After World War II, because of the limited lands to further expand the Meacham Field, the main airfield of Fort Worth, the city of Fort Worth decided to go back and transform the partially built Midway Field into the new main airport for the city. Once again, Fort Worth invited Dallas to join the project, but Dallas refused. Fort Worth, now being on its own, renamed this airport as the Amon Carter Field, after a famous Fort Worth businessman. After 3 more years of hard work, the Amon Carter Field was finally finished in 1953, almost 20 years since the initial start of the construction back in 1935. The finished airport only consisted of 2 runways, runway 17/35 and runway 13/31, instead of 3 proposed by the original plan, since runway 21/39 was decided to be cleared out. But anyways, the opening ceremony was grand, and the newly built terminal was huge, glamorous, and absolutely luxurious, with the main hall decorated with murals made of 18-karat gold, a wide and bright lobby, modern air conditioning system, and 17 boarding gates. The once cold and desolated Midway Field had been successfully transformed into the glorious Amon Carter Field. The grand opening of this magnificent airport has definitely caught many airlines' attention. Airlines including American, Braniff International, Central, Continental, Delta, Eastern, Frontier, and Trans-Texas Airways have all started to schedule flights to this new airport, including a variety of jet services as well. In 1959, American Airlines first began to provide jet services to the Amon Carter Field, using their brand new Boeing 707s that came out in 1957 for flights out to Los Angeles. Following American Airlines, Delta Airlines has also started operating their Convair 880s to LA and New Orleans. By about 1965, Braniff International Airways also began to operate their new BAC 111s to the Amon Carter Field. And honestly, this is one of the ugliest jetliners I've ever seen. Feel free to tell me your opinion in the comments below. Besides Braniff International Airways, there were another handful of new jet services getting started, including Continental Airlines DC-9s and Eastern Airlines Boeing 727-100s. With all these airlines starting jet services to a variety of destinations, the Amon Carter Field finally seemed to be on its way to prosperity. However, a series of problems and issues gradually surfaced and eventually drove this glorious airport made of 18-karat gold to its decline and final death. Even though the Amon Carter Field finally seemed to become busier and busier as more airlines began to operate scheduled flights, this airport, however, never attracted enough passengers to actually generate profits for the airlines. A departure chart in 1957 showed 97 scheduled departures daily. This amount of departures doesn't seem disappointing at all, but guess the most popular destinations of all these departures. I'll give you 5 seconds. Yes, the most popular destination is actually Dallas Love Field, that's only 11 miles away from the Amon Carter Field itself. So what's the point for a plane to only fly 11 miles and land at a different airport within the same city? Well, that's because there aren't enough passengers boarding at the Amon Carter Field. So over half of the 97 departures were headed to Love Field to pick up more passengers and then fly to their final destinations. It was only through this operating method that the airlines could truly generate profits at the Amon Carter Field. This is definitely a very hilarious issue. So in an effort to attract more passengers and keep the airport's prosperity up, the city of Fort Worth purchased the entire Amon Carter Field in 1960 and gave the airport a much more attractive name. Also the final and the most well-known name of this airport, the Greater Southwest International Airport. Following the name change, the IATA code of the airport was also changed to GSW, standing for Greater Southwest, but not Golden State Warriors as you might interpret.
Oh, just did prevent the backcourt violation and shoots the three!
Despite all these efforts to try to save the GSW airport from declining, the reality, however, strikes everyone hard. The airport has failed to attract any more passengers. At the same time, however, traffic in Dallas Love Field increased faster than ever, leaving the GSW airport less and less favorable, as some airlines even started to withdraw from this declining airfield that was once full of hope and prosperity. By 1963, the passenger volume at the GSW airport only made up about 1% of the state's total, while the passenger volume at the Dallas Love Field airport made up about 50% of the state's total. By 1964, the Federal Aviation Agency, or the FAA, had grown tired of funding two separate airports within the DFW Metroplex, so they stopped funding both airports and asked the two cities to work together and build one regional airport that serves both cities, similar to the initial purpose of the Greater Southwest International Airport. The final solution to this issue lies 2 miles north of the GSW airport, and that is constructing the Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport as a replacement to both the GSW Airport and the Love Field Airport. The new airport would be bigger than both airports combined, have a more efficient runway layout, and be able to handle more passengers to better compensate for future growth. This ambitious plan is equivalent to announcing the death for both the GSW and the Love Field Airport. Well, at least it holds true for GSW. By 1967, only American Airlines flights to Los Angeles and a few regional flights remained. And in 1969, as the last scheduled carrier at GSW, American Airlines also withdrew from the airport, officially ending all passenger services to the Greater Southwest International Airport. For the next 5 years, the airport was converted to a training and maintenance facility for American, Braniff, and Delta Airlines, as well as for general aviation and aircraft storage. In 1974, as the DFW International Airport had finished construction 2 miles north of GSW, the death of the once glorious GSW airport was officially announced. It had taken only 21 years for this airport to go from a grand opening in 1953, full of hope and promise, to a sad, silent closure with an empty, abandoned terminal in 1974. The Dallas Love Field Airport, on the other hand, only survived because it became the hub for Southwest Airlines, which is still occupying the airport as its primary base today. Five years after the airport was officially closed, it was sold to a private real estate developer in 1979. And in 1980, the airport terminal, yes, the luxurious one with 18-karat gold murals, was torn down by brutal machines. As the demolishing process went on, runway 17/35, however, was not completely gone, but was transformed into the Amon Carter Boulevard. Starting in the mid-80s, aviation-related buildings, such as flight training centers and jet engine testing facilities, began to rise above the grounds of the former Greater Southwest International Airport. As of year 2021, only a small section of the former runway 17 is visible on satellite, and that is exactly what we saw at the start of the video. Nowadays, as millions of passengers fly to and from the DFW International Airport, little do they know that they're also flying over a forgotten airport only 2 miles south of this busy, bustling international hub. The once glorious GSW airport now lies in silence, being engulfed by buildings, roads, and most importantly, by time.